could take some time here. Item number 2, as well as item number 8. And oh, get some feedback here. If everybody could please, while other people are talking, that will help avoid any feedback. That would be great. Item number 2 is the LMF funding announcement, and then item number 8 is the LMF work group report and recommendations, and we may have some actions on those particular items. And of course, we do have items that are project related. We'll roll right into right now agenda item number 2, which is the LMF funding announcement. I think this is pretty exciting news. It's not certainly it is not new news. We've all known about it for some time, but I think as the LMF board, it gives us a new lease on life here, if you will. We've got a great opportunity here in front of us. The legislature has certainly set a very new precedent by moving away from bond funding and going right to general fund for this program. It certainly highlights the importance of the Land for Maine Future program. And we've got some work cut out for us here in the coming years to this money in a way that will be meaningful for the state. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sarah to go through some details of the announcement.
And before I can do that, you guys can see my slides, right?
Yep, we can see it. You're good.
I can't. So hold on one second while I get there.
And just a reminder, we're recording for everyone.
Thank you for that. Well, I can't see my slides. So.
You know, actually, Sarah, I did fail to. We should do introductions because I noticed we've got some people that are joining. Why don't we quickly just have people jump in and so we can do announcements and I'll begin.
Perfect. That should give me just enough time to figure out what's going on here.
Excellent. I'll start. I'm Pat Kelleher, Commissioner at the Department of Marine Resources. Jim Norris, you want to introduce yourself? You're on mute, Jim.
Jim Norris from Winthrop. I'm a public member of our board. Look forward to today's meeting.
Thank you, Jim. Roger.
Roger Burley of Cliff Island, and a public member of the board. And I think this is an especially big meeting. They're all big meetings, but this is in view of the funding advancement and stuff we've had, wrapping up stuff we've had going on, and looking forward to a large-scale discussion of what we can accomplish over the next 12 months.
Great. Catherine.
Good morning. I live in Piersmont, and I'm a public member of the board for Land for Maine Future. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Now I can't see anybody on my screen to be able to call on people. Let's see. How about Don?
Good morning. Don Kleiner. I live in Union, also a public member of the Land for Maine's Future Board.
Barbara.
Good morning. I'm a public member from Brunswick by way of Auburn on the Androscoggin, by way of Rumford originally on the Androscoggin River. So looking forward to talking about how to invest this $40 million for Maine people.
Bob Myers.
I'm Bob Myers. I'm a public member from Bath.
Commissioner Beal.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Amanda Beal. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture, Conservation, and Forestry.
Great. And did Commissioner Camuso join?
Yes, I'm here. I'm Judy Camuso, Commissioner of Maine Fish and Wildlife.
Great.
Morning.
have I inadvertently left out any members of the board? Wow, that was pretty good when I can barely see any of you. So, okay. So with that, thank you for those introductions. And now we will turn it over to Sarah, who hopefully can see her screen.
Yes, I can now see my screen and I can start presenting. Okay, so we wanted to use today's meeting to sort of celebrate the fact that we now have $40 million in general fund allocation, as Commissioner Kelleher indicated. And that is funds available to acquire land and interest in land and all associated costs. And we're still getting some interpretation on exactly what that language means, if it includes things like surveys and legal expenses. That's what we expect it to mean, and just get some determination if it can include other costs as well. So of that $40 million, we've got at least 5% or $2 million for water access, at least 10% or $4 million for farmland, and the same amount, $4 million for working waterfront. We know from the language in the budget that no more than 10 million is to be spent in the first year. And then in following years, we'll have the remaining balance from the prior year plus an additional $10 million. The budget bill did specify that each expenditure is to be matched with an equal amount. So that's the 50-50 match that we're used to. And the bill also explicitly directs IF&W to proactively pursue projects that conserve deer wintering areas. The bill made some statutory changes to the LMF program. Some of these are new, and some of these are language that had been in bond bills that it's now shifted to statutes. So the bill establishes a definition for the community conservation, for our community conservation projects, which will replace local and regionally significant projects. Funds are to be used for statewide significant and community conservation projects. And preference will be given to community conservation projects that benefit multiple towns and regional conservation needs. And both of those last two had been in bond language previously. The bill directs us to prioritize projects promoting climate change adaptation and makes it sort of official that hunting, fishing, and trapping on LMF funded properties to the extent allowed by law and except on working waterfront and farmland projects may not be prohibited. And in the past, this was a bond requirement as well. That's sort of the high overview of what kind of the parameters of the funding are. In terms of next steps, what I would like us to think about is our September board meeting, setting an objective to set a funding timeline or funding cycle that is timely, thorough, and transparent. And obviously, I'm open to other board initiatives if there are things that you want to accomplish or sort of parameters under which you want to operate. That's what we'll be talking about in September. My hope is that in September, we'll be able to even potentially issue a call for proposal or invitation to a set of applicants. We also need to establish committees and work through our LMF process recommendations. My hope is that we'll be able to do the bulk of that work between our September and November meetings. So there may need to be some subcommittee meetings in October and early November in order to meet that deadline. There will be a few other topics that will take longer, but I'm hoping the bulk of it will get done this fall. In September, we'll be taking up items that require a board vote. So if we have any appraisals that have come in and need to be approved by the board, we'll do that. And then the afternoon, we're going to do a site visit to Howard Hill, which is in Augusta. It has access points in both Hallowell and Augusta. So my plan is that the September meeting will be in person with a hybrid option for those that would like to join. remotely, and then we'll do the morning business and the afternoon pleasure. That's the goal for September. And I'm love to hear thoughts and comments from board members and the public on that, to help me plan in the next month or so.
Sarah,
Yes.
this is Jim Norris. I'm obviously excited to get going and may not fully appreciate some of the difficulties of getting on track, but I guess I'm hopeful that we're able to possibly even meet or discuss certain areas even before September to get this ball rolling. And you know, I have one area in particular that a bit of pet peeve of mine. I don't know if it's timely to bring that up right now, but I do hope that we can expedite this and people can adapt to maybe a little faster pace. As I said, I can't fully appreciate the demands for the staff and other folks, but I'm certainly anxious to get the ball rolling.
I was going to, I just used my daily allowance of talking through my mute button. I appreciate those thoughts, Jim. I know both Commissioner Beal and Commissioner Camuso have been considering the issues around demand on staff, as I have for the issues around working waterfront. The timing of this, I think, is going to really be dependent upon our staff and staff support and the workload that we have. And I think those are the things I know the commissioners are taking into consideration, as well as Sarah for staff within LMF. For instance, I'm going to have to hire somebody, and we're in the process of doing that now. We're also, Commissioner Beal and Camuso and I did meet with the state controller regarding the statutory authorities as it relates to funding. We do believe we've got some flexibility to potentially use a very small amount of the 40 million for contract support if we needed that to help with ensuring that we can get these dollars out the door as quickly as we can. The state controller has asked us to reach out to the AG's office to verify his belief. We've done that, and we're waiting to hear back from the AG's office at this time. So I appreciate the desire to try to expedite, but I think we do have to go through a little bit of a process on ensuring we've got capacity. I've got a few hands up. I'll go to Don Kleiner, Bob, and then Roger.
Just very quickly, Mr. Chair, I see staffing as a bottleneck at this point, and I'm delighted to hear you've already begun to give it some thought. Because I think that is going to be our biggest challenge in the short term, is how do we accommodate the volume that's about to land on our river.
Yeah, thanks, Don. Barbara?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may be more of a question for either or both of Commissioner Beal and Commissioner Camuso, but I'm wondering if there are projects of statewide significance that have already surfaced in your departments that we might be able to handle on an expedited basis, you know, on a rolling basis or a continuous basis, so that we could bring those in early in the process. So it's really a question to either or both of you. Is that a feasible possibility?
Sure, I can start, Commissioner Beal, if that's okay with you. So thanks, Barbara, for your question. I have been meeting with staff consistently sort of before this allocation was made official, and then of course immediately after, to make sure that we have everything that we need in place to sort of move swiftly on these. So our staff, our regional staff, have been meeting with our sort of land access coordinator, Bethany Atkins, to prioritize parcels for acquisition, both, I mean, and we heard pretty loud and clearly from the legislature that they want the department focusing on deer wintering areas, and that's not to the exclusion of other projects, but certainly we will be looking at both. We will also, if needed, be bringing on additional contract staff to help with capacity and likely reallocating some workload so that we can free up some time of existing staff so that they could focus on these acquisition projects. And I think it's just important to say that we can all pledge to move as quickly as we can and as expeditiously as we can, but acquiring land does take time. So it is going to take time to, particularly for larger parcels, finding willing sellers and parcels that meet our standards and requirements for wildlife habitat acquisition. So we are for certain working on that, and we'll have projects, I believe, pretty close to being ready to move on as soon as possible.
Thanks, Judy. Amanda, do you want to add any information?
Sure. Yeah, so likewise, our staff are already working on, looking at projects that are on the horizon, have the ability to be in the pipeline more quickly, and that's happening in Bureau of Parks and Lands. In fact, I think staff are quite eager to get going, and then on the farmland protection side, just to note that there is we do have to stand up sort of a parallel to the Working Waterfront program, the farmland protection for the Farmland Protection Fund. So we have staff that are going to be working with LMF staff on that from the Bureau of Agriculture, Food and Rural Resources, and also just an update. Most of you know Stephanie Gilbert and know that she retired. And we are actively working to fill that position, and that position will have a key role in working with LMF as well going forward. So I think, and we're looking at other ways that we can build capacity, and I've met with Sarah, and we've had a conversation about capacity and needs. So we're pretty clear on what needs to be done going forward, and we're going to be working really hard on that.
Yeah, I would just add that, from where I sit, I've been in discussions with BPL and IFNW staff, and the plan that I've been putting together takes some of those capacity considerations into consideration. And I think we'll be able to come up with some proposals in September that get us started in a way that allows us to move forward quickly, while also building in some time to build that capacity. So you'll likely see some proposals that are phased, something that starts very quickly, and then another, opportunity in another 3 or 4 months, and then another opportunity shortly thereafter. So thinking about how to stage this in a way that we don't create a bottleneck from a staffing perspective.
Great, thank you for that information. Roger Burley, I thought I saw your hand up. Roger, did you have a question?
No, just wanted to do a little bit of piling on about moving forward. But in that regard, want to volunteer myself and any other board member willing to pitch in any way to help staff, to help with any individual project, and hopefully without gumming up the work. So I have my hand up for that, volunteering for that as well, and I'm done.
Great, thank you, Roger. Barbara?
Thank you. And in that same vein of volunteering, it does strike me that we will need to do some amendments to the LMF workbook before we can start processing things. And this will be to incorporate the 4 bills, the language, the statutory language, make sure everything's consistent there. And I would love to volunteer to work along with Sarah and Jason and Laura to do that. And perhaps in the next 2 months, I don't know, Sarah, if this is feasible, perhaps in the next 2 months to get together maybe another board member would like to participate so that we could have the revisions ready for the board at the September meeting to take a look at. Is that possible, Sarah?
We're actually going to talk about that later in the meeting, Barbara, as we talk about our work group process and the work that we have remaining to get through those recommendations. And yes, I will be laying out a recommendation for subcommittees to be developed also at our September meeting and setting a schedule. As I said earlier, my sense is the bulk of the work can be done between our September and November meeting, where the board reviews and makes a decision on each of those recommendations. And then there's probably a couple of other things that will need to happen between October and January. So we will talk about that schedule and what that will look like and volunteer opportunities for each of those committees in more detail.
Great, thank you. Anybody else on this before we move into the next agenda item?
Mr. Chairman, we kind of got into the weeds pretty quickly, and I just want to give a big shout out to Senator Breen and Representative Corey for their bipartisan leadership on this. This was amazing. It was unanimous out of committee, and a lot of people worked with legislators to make this $40 million allocation possible. And some of them may be on the line right now. Is it possible to let a few people celebrate with us for a moment or two, if the public would like to speak?
I was actually going to go to the public for input on the next steps. So we can, if any members of the public would like to raise your hand now, in particular to the process and our next steps, that would be great. First hand is Tim Glidden.
Hey, folks. Yes, Barbara, thank you for that. You expressed what I was going to say very much, very well. It's just really exciting to have the strength of support from the legislature, from the governor, recognizing the urgency of the tasks ahead of us. And I'm really heartened to hear the level of energy from LMS staff and commissioners on this one. I think we do have an opportunity here to really deliver for the people of Maine in some really important ways. And I offer sort of my own help to the extent that I can be helpful. And I know that I suspect there's others who would want to be helpful as well. I want one sort of specific thing that started to emerge in some of the commissioner conversations a moment ago that I would support is the notion of really letting the statewide significant projects advance as rapidly as they are, as the deals are ready to go, at least initially, because I think there's some, there is, low-hanging fruit is an overused term, but there are opportunities out there where we could move rapidly with existing systems and put some wins on the board that would sort of validate in the legislature's eyes the commitment that they have made. So I'm very supportive of that and would do whatever we can to support that work as well. Thanks.
Great, thank you, Tim. I appreciate those words. Any other members of the public that would like to provide information to the board? No members of the public. Judy.
Thanks, Pat. I just wanted to follow up on Tim's comment and just to express that we, realizing the sort of significant amount of work ahead of us, we have already reached out to many of our conservation partners, including the Nature Conservancy and the Trust for Public Land and the Conservation Fund to help us identify and start that potential acquisition project, so that some of those folks are actually a little more nimble than we are as an agency. So working with our partners to try and identify and start that process as quickly as we can.
Great, thank you, Judy. the whole idea of trying to move some projects ahead expeditiously, I think, is one that is really shared by, I can tell you it's shared by the commissioners, but I'll tell you it's also shared by the governor. Commissioner Beal and I were at the budget signing. I can tell you it was an emotional moment for the governor when she talked about this $40 million and the importance of it. And after the bill signing, Commissioner Beal and I were in her office, where she quickly and firmly expressed her desire to see us move on these issues as quickly as we could as an agency and as a program. She sees this as a very high priority, and of course expressed that to the commissioners to do what we can to move this along. So that's our word from the top, so to speak, and we will be moving along as quickly as we can. And I appreciate the thoughts on issues around statewide significance. Commissioner Beal.
Yes, I just wanted to take a moment to really just express my gratitude to everyone who worked so hard to make this possible. I know this was, years in the making of advocates and department staff from IF&W and DMR and DACF and our, many partners out there, legislators, just stepping up and making this happen for us. It's really exciting to be in a place where we know that we have a strong future for this program and that we're going to be able to do a lot of great work for the people of Maine. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for all of the work that you've done to get us to this point, and in particular to Commissioner Camuso and Commissioner Kelleher for your work advocating for these funds as well. I think, all of us pulling together really is what got us to where we are. And of course, deep gratitude to the governor for leading us here.
Thanks, Amanda. I think you missed somebody. You should have given yourself a big pat on the back with those comments as well, because I know you were right in the middle of the mix here with the work that was done across the river. So everybody's gratitude to you as well, and appreciate your support. Any other members of the public that would like to chime in? I'm not seeing any other hands. Any other members?
Caitlin has her hand up. Pat.
I can't see any hands on my screen. Who has their hand up?
Caitlin Bernard from PNC.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Commissioner Camuso. Thanks for the opportunity to comment. I'm Caitlin Bernard. I'm with the Nature Conservancy. We, of course, are very, very excited for this victory. And, it's striking to me. I've worked on this for many years, certainly not as long as others on this call, but it's exciting to have this come through in the budget. It shows just years and years and years of bipartisan and community support. So it's really exciting. Huge, huge gratitude and thank you to everyone here for all of the hard work that went into it. It's exciting that this funding is available right away. I also work on the Land and Water Conservation Fund federally, so want to make sure that we're thinking about how this lines up with that grant cycle. I know that there's a call for proposals there too out right now, so just keeping our eye on both pieces. Definitely sensitive to all that's been said about staffing capacity. TNC stands ready to help, as many others have already said. Whatever we can be doing to help, we're there. We're ready to go. But again, yeah, thank you so much to everyone. This is really exciting. I think hopefully we can all take a minute and celebrate. Just $40 million is a pretty amazing accomplishment. I have some thoughts about creative ways to structure, I think one thing that's worth noting too, alongside the LWCF piece, is a lot of the folks who are typically involved in this cycle might not realize that this funding is available now. Those of us who are in Augusta day to day and we're tracking this certainly understand that money is ready. We don't have to go through a ballot campaign, but I'm curious, if there's a way for us to flag for, I know Commissioner Camuso, you said you've already talked to some partners, but some of the new entities or not so, smaller land trust groups that are hopefully interested and excited about this. I was watching the federal process when they were looking for earmarks, and that timeline was so tight that there were many groups who didn't have time to get their stuff together they had great ideas and great projects, but it was so short of a timeline. So just thinking about how we can, even if we're not opening an RFP right away, finding a way to sort of alert the masses that there is funding available and that there will be a deadline coming up soon so people can start thinking and we don't miss out just because of the process. So that's all I have to add. Thank you all again for all of this incredible work, and I hope we can all celebrate together.
Great. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate that. I've got two more people with hands up. I've got Karen Tilburg and then Nick Batista.
Greetings, and I also extend my deep appreciation for just the tremendous effort here from all of you. And I just wanted to add two or three quick points. The timeliness of this, in my view, can't be emphasized strongly enough, given what we're seeing as the Forest Society of Maine in some of the rural areas, the gateway areas to the North Woods, as there is extreme development pressure. And to be able now to have this tool of funding to be able to move forward with projects that are waiting, I think, to move forward is just so wonderful and timely for Maine and Maine's resources and people. So thank you. I wanted to just throw out a quick thought. I know you'll be taking up some of the process recommendations that were developed over the past year, but perhaps there's a way to identify the readiness of projects that would pose the least amount of administrative burden on your staffs, so those might move forward more swiftly if the readiness factors are high. So I just throw that out. I know many land trusts, such as Forest Society of Maine and communities, have projects that are, could be ready if now that there's money. So I just throw that out and just say thank you so much again for all your work.
Thank you, Karen. Nick Batista.
Good morning. I just wanted to second what Caitlin said about outside partners being ready and willing and able to help with parts of this work, particularly raising awareness around the availability of funds and helping to get people to the table and into their room. And just wanted to say from the Amnesty perspective, we're very happy to help out on the working waterfront side of things.
Great, thanks, Nick. Certainly the working waterfront's going to be a challenge. $4 million is quite a bit more money than we've put on the ground before. I think I was talking with staff about that yesterday. We may need to consider some policy changes around working waterfront funds to ensure that we're getting a really strong applicant pool going forward. Anybody else from the public that would like to chime in here this morning? Not seeing, I think I've got my screen set up now so I can see everybody finally. I'm not seeing any additional hands. So with that, we will move right into the next agenda, the meat of the agenda really, and our next item. Some of these issues that have been discussed will come up again under item 8. So we'll have another opportunity to kind of talk about what our next steps are going to be. Item number 3 is the minutes of the May 25th meeting. Do any members of the board have any questions, comments, revisions for the minutes from May 25th?
I will note that Tamara noted a mistake in the minutes where the minutes referred to January. So we are aware of that mistake, and she has already gone ahead and changed that, and that will be the updated version will be put on our website.
I move we approve as corrected.
And I second the motion, Roger.
Motion by Barbara to approve as amended, seconded by Roger. Any comments from the board on the motion? Any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections, the motion passes. Moving right along to item number 4, bond balances.
And I will note this will look entirely different at our next meeting, as we will have new accounts to report on.
Any additional information you want to give us besides that it'll look different, Sarah?
What you see is what you get. We've got
Okay.
about 3.5 million remaining, and I'm going to go to the next slide to show you that we have about 2.5 in commitments at this time. Spread across 4 CNR projects, 3 water access projects, and 2 working waterfront projects.
Great.
You'll see on your handout that we still have a little over $500,000 available in water access funds to spend. So that's where we're at financially.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions of Sarah regarding bond balances or project allocation and status? Seeing no hands or hearing no comments, then we will accept those as presented, and we'll move along to item number 6, which are projects that need to be acted on. The first up is the Sysladobsis Lake Water Access Project. Sarah, who's presenting on that?
This is going to be Jason.
Jason, you're up.
Thank you. So Sysladobsis and Horseshoe Lakes came to the board for preliminary allocation back in December. By way of refresher, this is 2,000 acres in Lakeville, and the proposed water access improvements include a hand carry boat launch on Sysladobsis Lake, a new boat launch on Horseshoe Lake, which would be the only secured public access on that lake. More on that in a minute. Also a water access campsite on Sysladobsis and shoreline trails on both lakes. With regard to the Horseshoe Lake launch, I know there was some discussion at the December board meeting about how improved and accessible that launch would be. Since then, there has been some discussion between Down East Lakes Land Trust and BPL about what that would look like. The plan is to essentially make it as improved as conditions allow. So if the depth of the lake allows for trailed access, it will be trailered. If not, it will be hand carry with parking as close to the lake as possible. So that is the plan. If there are any other questions about the project itself, folks from TPL, Down East Lakes Land Trust, and BPL are here to field those questions if I don't have the answers. But if there are no questions about the project itself, we'll move on to the appraisal. The AOC met last month. The appraisal came in at 2.8 million, and that value was accepted without reservations after very nearly a full minute of deliberation. So that's the recommendation to the board to approve that value, and there is a motion to that effect on this slide.
Great. Thank you, Jason. Any questions of the board before we go to a motion? Hearing no questions, would somebody like to make a motion for the board to entertain?
I can do that. And I think this also underscores the importance of getting high quality appraisals. I mean, as Jason mentioned, I think our meeting lasted all of 2 minutes. We had an outstanding appraisal and then a review appraisal that was just kind of verified everything that we had already agreed upon. So I move to approve the recommendations of the LMF Appraisal Oversight Committee and accept the appraiser's value of $2,800,000.
And I second the motion.
Motion by Bob Myers, seconded by Roger Burley. Any questions or comments related to the motion? Hearing none, is there any objections to the motion? Hearing none, seeing none, the motion passes without objection. Thank you very much. Jason, you want to move on to the next portion of this?
Yep. So public notice was put in the Kennebec Journal and Bangor Daily News on July 16th. We have not received any comments.
Great.
I don't know,
No comments were received. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on this project? Not seeing any hands or faces show up on the screen, so let's move on to the next slide, which is support for acquisition. So, Jason.
So there's a letter from TPL in your board packet that goes into this in more detail. There is a request from TPL and Down East Lakes Land Trust to change the LMF award from a preliminary amount in light of the appraisal. I've highlighted the big changes to the budget from the initial proposal to the current request. The big difference is the appraised value was over 700,000 more than they had anticipated, due primarily to the change in the real estate market in the past year and a half. The option agreement has a price cap in it, so the new with that increased value, that's not all going to be purchase price. There's going to be a $620,000 bargain sale component, but that still leaves a $110,000 funding gap to get to the new purchase price. TPL and Down East Lakes Land Trust feel like they don't have the opportunity to go back to their federal funders. They feel like they've tapped out their private fundraising potential. So they are requesting that the LMF award be increased by $110,000 to close that funding gap. And as you can see on the bottom there, because of, even though that increased award would be more than matched by the bargain sale, the actual match percentage on this project would increase even with the increased award. So that request is pending in front of the board, and as I said, folks from TPL and Down East Lakes are here to answer any questions about that.
Thanks, Jason. I think Don Kleiner has his hand up. Don?
Mr. Chair, would you be interested in a motion at this point?
Do you have the draft motion ready to go? I am interested in a motion as long as no other members of the board have any questions, either to BPL or the applicant. Seeing no hands, Don.
I move that we confirm the allocation of $710,000 in LMF water access funding to support the acquisition of the Sysladobsis and Horseshoe Lakes parcel, subject to our standard conditions.
And I'll second that motion.
A motion by Don, seconded by Roger Burley. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands go up, any objections to the motion? Seeing no objections, the motion passes. Thank you very much.